No one would have thought that a witch would appear in the warm kingdom of Pandemium. The evil woman used magic that made people hate each other. With the outbreak of war, a plague appeared, and the once beautiful kingdom fell into decline. But let's not rush to get upset, because then 7 magicians arrived from the north. They united with the queen and successfully fought off the Black Witch. Eventually, they returned the kingdom to its former peace. But things are not that simple. The witch cursed the souls of people and promised to return again and again until the curse disappeared. The queen was alarmed by the curse, so she asked the 7 magicians to stay. But they put forward their condition that it was necessary to raise strong magicians in order to fight back against the demons. Since then, the kingdom has become magical, and an academy of magic called Papillon has appeared. Getting into an academy that was recognized as the best and received a lot of love was very difficult. Only children of magicians with a deep history and outstanding talent could enter there. But of course, not all students had so-called privileges. This is how this story began. When the teacher was unhappy with her student, Ria is the perpetual loser of Papillon Academy's scholarship. Those around her, alas, did not have the best opinion of Rhea. They discussed her behind her back. Ria could clearly hear them whispering about her and was angry about it. Some commoners with a natural gift for magic were allowed to study at the academy. The main character wanted to pretend to be a ghost in order to survive among the rest in this academy. We move on to the next moment, where we are introduced to a new character. The people standing behind the guy were delighted and shocked by his skills and abilities. The teacher praised Cheyenne only after she was convinced that the boy had nothing more to teach. In response to her words, Cheyenne only smiled modestly, because in his opinion, she was overpraising him. Ria heard the girls next to her discussing Cheyenne, how he never gave up first place to anyone. Cheyenne was called a true genius of the academy, and his innate mana was already on another level. But thinking about this, Ria remembered that there were losers like her who had achieved little. She knew that people like her should never get involved with stars like Cheyenne. On her way back, Ria met her friend Ayla, who wanted to invite her somewhere. Ayla shared that today there will be high-level magicians at the additional lesson. Ria apologized to Ayla, explaining that she had things to do after school, and her friend began to interrogate her. But Ria didn't even want to listen to her, making excuses that she had a lot of things to do and that it was time for her to run. The girl just wasted her time because she really is late. So, some time passes, and Ria returns back to the estate. The maid who met her noted that Ria was quite late today. The girl changes from her clothes into a maid's uniform in a few minutes. She was looking forward to trying a piece of pie that her colleagues had left for her in the kitchen. But when Ria ran into the kitchen, she found a picture of Cheyenne finishing that very last piece. Of course, the girl got angry and started yelling at Cheyenne in an offended manner. The guy felt awkward about the situation, but he believed that first come, first served. The servants in the other room heard their squabble, but were not surprised, because this happened very often. Eventually, Ray's patience snapped, and she decided that Cheyenne would die today. And then she would too. This is how a failed scholarship student and the heir of a great noble family live together under the same roof. The next day, while Ria was hanging out the laundry, her partner said that it was time for her to go to the academy. The girl returns with a slight pain in her body, because the blockage had already been there since the morning. She noticed Cheyenne standing in front of her, who was just waiting for her. The guy asks her to hurry up, and Ria, realizing that they were late, decided to speed up. They took each other's hands and thus teleported to the academy, or rather, to the street next to it. Ria scanned the area with her eyes, and when she was sure everything was clear, she told Cheyenne that they could go. Cheyenne didn't really understand why Ria was moving them here every single day when there was a main gate. She replied that no one should know how they came to school, and when Cheyenne asked why, Ria was surprised that he didn't know. Just as the girl was about to retreat, Cheyenne pulled her hair, noticing something in the strands. Ria frowned, asking the guy to take it easy, and at that moment, she noticed something on his head. The girl carefully tried to remove the leaf from his head, not noticing how she was staring at him. Ria felt embarrassed when she suddenly remembered that they were, in fact, at the academy. By the time Ria decided it was time for them to leave before anyone saw them, it was already too late. The guy who was passing by immediately turned away as soon as he saw that the girl noticed him. He passed by, and a worried Cheyenne asked Ray what happened. Each of the 7 mages who saved Pandemium formed a noble family under their own name. This was what the teacher told the students in a lecture, noting that after 300 years, the magicians continue their lineage. He says that the descendants of magicians have outstanding talents and powerful mana. Rhea, hearing the teacher say that they should not be disrespected, only sighed heavily. In fact, Cheyenne and Rhea were friends who grew up as brother and sister since childhood. There are almost no ordinary people among Papillon's students. They all come from wealthy families. Rhea had always been considered a loser, and she was terrified of what people would think if they found out she was working as a maid in her classmate's house. Moreover, this same classmate is the descendant of a prosperous family. The girl was even scared to imagine what rumors could spread about them. Besides, Rhea had already encountered this when she tried to hide her connection with Cheyenne. Anios is a fellow scholarship student like Rhea, and this commonality brought them closer together. Everything was going well until something happened when Anios noticed Rhea talking to Cheyenne. When Cheyenne realized that they had been spotted, he suddenly grabbed Rhea's hand and pulled her along with him to hide. Since Anios was sure that it was Rhea, she went to look for her. Cheyenne was worried that Rhea was hurt, even though she assured him that everything was fine. At that moment, while they were sorting things out, Anios found them, freezing in shock. Rhea planned to tell Anios everything as it is, because she is her friend. But the girl saw how viciously Anios looked at her then, completely not wanting to listen to her. And at that moment, Rhea realized that if she wanted to graduate well from the academy, she would need to hide her connection with Cheyenne. Even though Anios didn't start spreading rumors, Rhea still started to act cautiously. But she was still worried that she had let her guard down today, allowing someone to notice them. So the main character decided that she needed to find that guy and make him keep quiet. At this point, the teacher asks the students' attention so that they can meet the new student at the academy. It turned out to be the same guy who noticed Rhea and Cheyenne together, who introduced himself as June. While Cheyenne was talking with his classmates, a girl approached him, inviting him to have lunch with her. Cheyenne began to apologize that he was busy now, but at that moment, he felt something pulling his hand. The girl, confused by his words, thought that he just wanted to go alone with her. But when she turned around again, Cheyenne was no longer there, leaving her puzzled. It turned out that it was Rhea who dragged Cheyenne into the library and told him to remain silent. Cheyenne jokingly asked what Rhea was going to do with him in such a deserted place. But the heroine was in no mood for jokes, and she tells Cheyenne that the guy they saw in the morning transferred to them. But what was important to her was that they had to shut that guy up before rumors started spreading. Cheyenne simply didn't understand Ray's feelings, and so she was already thinking that she should drop out. When Rhea said that she was worried about their relationship, Cheyenne asked what kind of relationship they were in. The question made the girl confused, but she replied that they were simply the heir and the servant. Cheyenne didn't like this idea and asked Rhea to deal with it herself. The guy gets up from the floor and leaves, waving his hand at the girl, and she doesn't have time to stop him. A confused Rhea was left alone, not understanding why Cheyenne was so angry. She thought he was offended when she told him they were just an heir and a servant. But even now, our main character remembered her first meeting with Cheyenne. The servants did not understand why the mistress brought into the house this girl who was left an orphan, abandoned in the rain. Sitting around the corner, little Rhea heard their entire conversation, trying not to attach any importance to it. Her thoughts are interrupted by a boy who appears next to her, extends his hand to her, and asks her to follow him. After Cheyenne's father died of illness, his grieving wife closed the doors of the estate and did not allow any guests. Rhea and Cheyenne, it turns out, were the only children in such a huge estate. Cheyenne was not only a friend and family to Ray, but also a special person. This continued until Rhea found out what a unique individual Cheyenne was. When Rhea looked at him, she didn't understand if this was the Cheyenne she knew. The girl then wondered if she really was a special person for him. But later, Rhea brushed these thoughts aside, deciding that she needed to put her feelings of inferiority aside. At some point, Rhea stopped after hearing the conversation between Cheyenne and the head of the family. The guy told the head of the family that he gets along with Rhea as a friend and girlfriend, and nothing more. Rhea broke out in a cold sweat when she heard that the head of the family herself had ordered him to do this. The woman was uneasy. She asked Cheyenne to be more careful, and he listened to her. Rhea, who was eavesdropping on the conversation, freezes in shock upon hearing Xian call her a miserable child. Her hands began to shake involuntarily, but she couldn't drop the tray because it was expensive. Ria realized her situation too late, but she couldn't imagine that Xian liked her. In the end, the girl decided that she could cope just fine without him. So when the new student was introduced to the class, she greeted Jun with a smile. The guy gave her a serious look, as if he didn't want to talk to her. Ria asked him to contact her if he had any difficulties. And, after a short pause, Jun finally smiled, greeting Ria. The girl thought about it at this point because she didn't remember telling the guy her name. The founders of the academy filled the building with forbidden labyrinths and secret rooms. Every full moon, a monster living in a magic tower goes hunting and looks for a victim. There is also a rumor that if you swear your love in front of a certain statue, you will be together forever. However, the strangest rumor was that a demon was sealed in a forbidden part of the academy. Lately, Ria has been enjoying her vibrant student life. The student Jun, who appeared out of nowhere, behaved indifferently towards everyone. He smiled only at Ria, and that bright smile made her uncomfortable. Jun and Ria spent almost all their time together, during every class and break. Jun agreed to try Ria's cookies, thanking the girl and noting that she was a good cook. And while they both enjoyed the cookies, Ria thought something was wrong. The main character wanted to bribe Jun to keep quiet, but everything goes too smoothly. As she was thinking this in her mind, she noticed Jun looking back at her, and she felt embarrassed. Because of this, the girl choked, and Jun asked her to take her time. Ria blushed, thinking that besides this, Jun was also very handsome. Other students standing nearby were discussing the new guy, who they thought looked completely ordinary. No one has been transferred to the academy for 10 years because the entrance exam is very difficult. Ria explained that scholarship recipients have to keep a low profile. And then Jun asked, wouldn't she attract attention if she hung out with the new guy everyone was talking about? Ria didn't have time to answer him because Kinan suddenly approached them, suddenly smelling the stench. He thought that Ria was on a date with a new guy and told her that at this rate she would fail the exam again. As luck would have it, right now the worst company in the entire academy has arrived here. Kenan noticed the cookies lying on the blanket, asking if she had made them by any chance. He said that common people have no concept of hygiene since they sit and eat from the ground. The guy was about to throw out this, as he put it, garbage, but Jun suddenly stopped him. Ria and Kenan froze in place when Jun suddenly ate all the cookies himself, not allowing a single one to be thrown away. The girl was very embarrassed and felt awkward, not expecting what a glutton Jun would turn out to be. Kenan asked Jun in horror if he really liked such dirty things. He told the two that they now looked like a couple of cockroaches. Ria turned around and noticed that Jun was about to use magic, but tried to stop him in time. She decided to admit her mistake by apologizing to Kenan. Ria told the boy that since the cookies were very dirty, she didn't want him to get dirty. However, Ria wanted to make him other cookies, to which he angrily shouted that he would not eat them. Students watching the unfolding drama discussed how Kenan had gone too far. Eventually, Kenan leaves, asking Ria and Jun to nibble on their own scraps. Jun noticed that Ria handled it quite easily and thought that she often encountered this. Jun didn't like that Ria silently endured the bullying because she was only ruining her own life. In response to his objection, Ria asked what was wrong with her patience. Ria asked if he thought about the consequences if he did use his magic. She explained that no one would dare to enter into conflict with Kenan because they would still be guilty. Explaining to him that she wants to graduate safely, Ria says that Jun probably has a purpose for being here too. Ria just wants to survive by any means necessary on this battlefield, and she didn't mind if Jun called her a coward. Before leaving, the girl wondered if she had gone too far. After some time, Jun decided to use his magic circle to determine something, but he had nowhere to rush, because he was sure that in this academy, Rhea would have nowhere to escape. It was Ria's second week of observing the new boy, and she still thought he was handsome. Jun was able to meet Ray's beauty standards, which had skyrocketed thanks to Cheyenne. The second thing the heroine noticed was that Jun did not show interest in others. When other students offered him something, the boy replied that he was not wasting his time. It seems that Jun has been ruining his relationships with others quite quickly, and Ria has noticed this. Since Jun only talks to Ria, she thought she didn't need the plan anymore. The third thing that Ria noticed was that Jun was walking around the academy grounds very often. When he approached a wall one such time, he heard someone telling him that it was forbidden to go there. It turns out to be Rhea, who explains that if he gets inside the barrier, he won't be able to get out. Since June doesn't even know the way, the girl asked him to be careful. Jun thanked her, putting on a fake smile, and Rhea responded in kind. But, one way or another, Rhea doesn't understand why Jun was here and not in class. She invited the guy to go back together, when suddenly she heard someone's voices. Rhea and Jun noticed Kenan and his friend coming out of someplace, discussing something. The main character decides to check out the place by looking inside and asking if there is anyone there. The girl is shocked when she sees her ex-friend Anios sitting on the floor. Rhea wanted to examine her and ask if she was okay, but Anios waved her off. She replied that it was none of Ray's business and that she should mind her own business. Standing behind Jun also asked her to forget it, since Anios said it was none of her business. The guy also added that if Rhea has any problems, she can tell him. The girl did not expect such a turn of events, but nevertheless thanked him. The next thing Rhea noticed was that the new guy was too kind to her, and it was making her nervous. June never left Rhea's side for a single step every single day, except for those moments when he was walking around somewhere. When the guy asked her what she was doing, the girl replied that she was doing her homework because of a curse. Jun smiled, calling her hardworking, and asked her not to be discouraged. Rhea didn't understand why Jun was looking at her, sitting close to her, but wasn't doing his homework. He noticed a magic card on the table and asked if she had made it herself. Rhea didn't expect that he also knew about magic cards. June explained that the card was currently empty and would need to be filled with magic to use it again. When he asked where she got so much mana from, the girl modestly replied that she asked an acquaintance for it. In the end, Jun gives her the card that he filled with mana. Rhea thanked him, and the guy replied that it was nothing and asked her to tell her if she needed to. Rhea felt embarrassed again because Jun was too sweet and affectionate with her. The main character thought that she was somehow special for this guy, and then she suddenly allowed the thought that June might like her. Rhea was never able to finish her homework in peace because of Jun. No concentration when you're being devoured with a gaze. Rhea thought that if he really liked her, then it could lead to a confession. But she didn't understand why he would like her, and she decided it was time to stop fantasizing. Because the girl was too carried away by her thoughts, she didn't even notice how she accidentally broke a chair. As she began to fall, Rhea prepared herself to fall, but suddenly felt herself being stopped by magic. She looked up and saw Cheyenne, who asked her warily what she was doing. Cheyenne realized that Rhea was doing her homework again while working, even though he had warned her not to multitask. Rhea asked him to keep quiet because everyone can make a little mistake. Before she could do anything, Rhea watches as Cheyenne begins to clean up with magic. When everything around became clear, the girl was surprised how he managed to do it in just a couple of seconds. Rhea was unhappy that Cheyenne helped her, because at this rate the maids would lose their jobs. Cheyenne asked her to sit at the table and finish her homework in peace. As the main character sat down to finish her homework, she noticed Cheyenne staring at her. She asked him if he had anything to do, and he replied that he had finished it in 5 minutes. But while there was still time, Rhea asked to fill her cards with mana. Cheyenne was genuinely surprised and even tensed up when he saw how many cards Rhea had pulled out. Rhea warned him that if he was tired, he might not be able to fill all the cards, but Cheyenne was a stubborn guy. He laid out all the cards on the table and began to fill them with mana, as Rhea asked. The girl watched the process carefully, not expecting that the guy would be able to remember all the cards at once. One of the maids came into the room and asked Rhea to help in the kitchen, and the girl immediately agreed. Cheyenne was unhappy because he wanted to have fun, but Rhea didn't want to get fired. In the end, the main character leaves with the maid. Left alone, Cheyenne decides to check her cards, noticing that all sorts of scammers have started to stick to her. Some time passed, and in the kitchen, the students were brewing a potion, following the teacher's instructions. She asked them to stir it thoroughly, imagining how their object of the curse would scream in fear. The more they hate the mage, the more powerful the curse will be, so they should forget about remorse. June noticed that Rhea was having a hard time and asked if she needed help. Rhea felt embarrassed every time she looked at his face, and she didn't know what to do about it. Because of this, she accidentally spilled her ingredients, and Jun worriedly asked if she was hurt. The girl didn't understand how this happened, so she sat down on the floor and began to collect everything she had spilled. She didn't notice how Anios, who was standing next to her, began to help her collect the ingredients. Just as Ria was about to thank her, she suddenly saw who had actually decided to help her. Sitting nearby, Kenon decided to interfere with them and, using magic, took one ingredient from Rhea. The stone-faced girl turned around, mentally asking if he was tired of it. Anios decided to joke that there was a cockroach under Kenon's feet, but the guy jumped up in place, scared. While he was trembling with fear, the other students looked at him sideways and laughed. Ria was surprised that the heir of one of the great magical families was afraid of cockroaches. Kenan was angry because he was being made fun of and thought that Ria was asking for it. The guy suddenly, without warning, used magic on Rhea, thereby cutting her palm. Anios asked worriedly if everything was okay, but Rhea had escaped with only a light scratch, as she thought. At that very moment, Kenan sees the same ingredient that he used to hurt the girl flying at him. It turned out to be June, whose face looked frighteningly serious. An angry Kenan grabbed him by the collar, realizing that Jun did it on purpose. Rhea couldn't believe her eyes that two guys were fighting over her. While Kenan was trying to pull Juna in, the latter asks him what family he is from. Jun was just afraid that after he made a bunch of holes in Kenan, he wouldn't be able to talk. Suddenly, the teacher entered their squabble, threatening to turn them into cockroaches if they did not stop. Kenan immediately started apologizing, while everyone around him thought how pathetic he was. Jun left the classroom and started to walk away, but the main character hurried to catch up with him. The anger seemed to have blown away, and Jun asked what happened with a smile on his face. Rhea thanked him for his help, but asked him not to do it again because of her. Juna was not happy with this arrangement, to which Rhea told him that his interference had only made things worse. The girl explained that she could handle her own problems, and that June should not interfere unnecessarily. Suddenly, the guy unexpectedly came closer to Rhea and took her hand. She was at a loss, wanting to ask what he was doing, but Jun asked her not to interrupt. As it turned out, he decided to use magic to heal the girl's injured hand. After Jun did this, he asked Rhea to use the ointment because it might leave a scar. After this, June quickly left, and the main character remained on the stairs in a slightly shocked state. She blushed visibly, not understanding why June was doing all this. When the guy found himself on the street, he was also thinking about what had happened a few minutes ago. But a parrot that flew in brought him out of his endless thoughts. June knows him, and he asked why the parrot decided to visit here, and he asked him to report everything. Looking around, the guy notes that there are too many extra eyes here, but the parrot replied that this is not critical. Eventually, June quietly tells the parrot that so far everything is going according to plan. Rhea was more alert than June expected, so it would take a little longer. The parrot ordered that through Rhea, they must find in which part of Papillon the demon's body is hidden. At this point, we find out that Jun is a demon hunter, and that he will even have to pay with his name. As night fell, Rhea examined her hand, noting that there was not a single flaw left on it. She didn't know that June was so good at healing magic, and she suddenly became curious about where June could have studied before the Papillon Academy. As soon as she remembered so much about today's incident, she almost went crazy again. Just when she was thinking that Jun really liked her, a maid entered the room. The woman apologized for disturbing him and asked him to take something to the gentleman. Rhea agreed without any problems and came to Cheyenne's room. Cheyenne, surprisingly, greets her fully dressed, as if he was about to go somewhere. The girl froze for a moment when she saw how beautifully Cheyenne was dressed. She asked with interest what he was doing in the middle of the night. The servant, who had been in the room all this time, said that the outfit for the master's birthday was ready. The man made a few minor adjustments, agreeing that the suit fit very well. The most respected of the 7 great magical families is considered to be the sun. They are the descendants of Ceos, the most powerful archmage in history. He was the true hero of Pandemium who exorcised the demon, and the magic they used in the fight still lingers in the air. Because of this, even now, endless snow continues to fall on the northern mountain range. 300 years have passed since then, but during this time, a magician who surpassed Ceos has not appeared. In his outfit, Cheyenne looked exactly like his ancestor in the portrait. And while Rhea was thinking about this, Cheyenne asked her to put the brooch she brought on him. The girl came closer to the guy and asked him to stand still. For some reason, Rhea was very worried, so she couldn't calmly put on the brooch. Cheyenne, noticing this, asked what was wrong, and leaned towards her, asking if she was nervous. Rhea immediately pushed Cheyenne away, asking him not to bother her. She decided to ask why he suddenly needed a new outfit for his birthday. Sighing heavily, Cheyenne replied that he himself did not know, since this would only cause him more trouble. But the girl asked him not to say that, because the Song family was hosting a reception for the first time in 7 years. Everyone is excited, as this is the first time their mansion will host guests since Cheyenne's father passed away. The servant thinks that such a luxurious outfit will be appropriate, since Shioni will be presented to the public for the first time. The others discussed how long the lady had held out, because they would have liked to brag about their master every day. Rhea has never seen a reception outfit like this before, and it doesn't look like a regular suit. Then, another maid stated that this was the uniform of the Night Mage Squad. The Mage Knight Squad is the best in the Empire, led by the Song family. Even from the Academy, only the elite can pass into the squad of Night Mage, although for Cheyenne, this was not a problem. Cheyenne asked why Rhea was looking at him like that, offering to try on his outfit too, but she refused. The guy is indignant that she refused, because he thinks that it would really suit her. When he told her it was beautiful, Rhea told him who was beautiful here was he. Later, when Rhea recalculated her income, everything looked very dismal. She still had 100 years to save up for her goal, and she wasn't sure she could afford to spend it on Cheyenne. The girl does not understand why the gentleman decided to hold the reception, because they could have done everything as usual. Suddenly, Cheyenne knocked on the door, wanting to come in, but Rhea asked him to wait. The guy walks into the room, and the main character notices a pie in his hands. Rhea thought that Cheyenne would eat her portion again, but he replied that it was best to do so when there was only one portion left. Cheyenne found it strange that Rhea forgot her pie after leaving. He asked if something had happened, to which the girl replied that everything was fine. When Cheyenne noticed the chess set on the table, he invited Rhea to play a couple of games. The girl agrees without any problems, and then the guy asks what they will bet on. Rhea suggested that he do her homework for her, since he was still first in the rankings. Cheyenne was very hopeful of winning, but in the end, Rhea beat him and won. She asked him to try his luck in 10 years, to which Cheyenne replied that he would be pretty cool by then. He asked Rhea if she would be able to compete with him then, and the girl thought that she would no longer be able to. She asked where he could be even cooler, and Cheyenne asked her to give in to her at least once in chess. But the girl can't do this, and that's why she wants to leave this mansion. She knew that Cheyenne would become the new head of the family, and she would continue to clean his rooms. But she wants to distance herself from Cheyenne as much as possible so as not to feel despair again. At the same moment, Kenan again mocks Anios because he felt that she was too cheerful lately. He asked why she didn't listen to him and behave as she was told. Anion froze in place when Kenan told her that he had asked her not to communicate with Rhea. She explained to him that they had met by chance and that she had not communicated with her, and Anios warned that if Kenan was going to bully Rhea, she wouldn't just let it go. The guy got even more angry, asking Anios if she had forgotten her place. He tells her how his father says their wine doesn't taste the same anymore, and they're thinking of breaking the deal. Anios could not allow this to happen, because she understood that it would be the end of her family. But Kenan, stepping on her hand, asked how she, knowing this, dared to turn up her nose. He asked her not to shake, and said that if Anios thought with her head, he would not do anything to her. Kenan sat down opposite her, explaining that it would be easier for her to help him for the sake of their friendship. When Rhea came to exchange her card for coins, she was outraged that she was being offered too little. But the seller, smiling, said that 5 gold coins for one card was even too much. Rhea proves that this is not a simple card, but a luxury one, with a masterfully carved magic circle. She decides to be cunning and offers to buy them this card to get rid of headaches, nausea, and so on. Rhea had done a good job today, deciding that it had not been in vain that she had toiled until dawn on the black market. Not long ago, Rhea got a rather dangerous part-time job, where she sells magic cards that she drew herself. Now the girl needs funds for independent living. She passed by the counter with new gloves, asking them to wait a little. The next day, Rhea almost fell asleep without wanting to, because she had been very overworked the day before. At that moment, Ayla approached her. Noticing that the girl looked tired, she invites Rhea to join them for tea, but Rhea wasn't sure she could. A girl named Janez suddenly approached them, also wanting to join them. Janez says that the cafe they are going to belongs to a member of her family. But before she could continue, one of her friends grabbed Ayla by the hand and ran away with her. Ria looked at them questioningly, and Janez said that they were simply avoiding him. The girl smiled and explained that it was all because she was from the Hirschman family. Ria was surprised, because she knew that this family was one of the Great Seven. Their family is more interested in wealth than magic, because they believe that the world is money. Other families feel hostility towards them, calling them ignorant. Janez guessed that Ria thought that she lacked the nobility that all families had. But in fact, Janez didn't give a damn what other people said. And the girl also added that she likes her family's worldview. When she decided to clarify Ria's name, Ria asked her what she needed. Jeans observed Ria for a while and found out almost everything about her. She suddenly shows Ria the map she sold yesterday on the black market. Janez actually said that she got this card last night on the black market. Ria wished she could sink into the ground when Janez praised her for her good trading. But the girl hastened to reassure Ria that she would not tell anyone anything and suggested that she start a business. She offers to produce Ria cards and supply them to the black market for sale. Then, Ria asked where she was going to get that much mana, but Jeans already had an idea. She warned that if they got caught, it wouldn't be very cool. After their conversation, Ria sat on the couch and thought about it. She realized that mass production could really bring in a lot of profit. And while she was drowning in her thoughts, June unexpectedly, or rather obviously, sat down next to her. June sat right here, although there were plenty of empty seats around. Then the guy turned to her and asked if she would stop already or not. Ria replied that he was the first to mislead a man, but Jun explained that he was talking about the cards. He heard their entire conversation with Jeans, and now explains that financial activities using magic are severely punished. He warned her that if she wanted to study peacefully at Papillon, she needed to stop doing bad things. Then Ria asked him if he was really worried about her, and she immediately asks why he is so kind to her, but cold to everyone else. Jun remained silent in response, which made the two of them feel even more awkward. But suddenly, the guy unexpectedly gets up from his seat and runs away like the last coward. Although Ria, seeing how he ran away confusedly, even considered it cute. When Jun managed to find a secluded place, he thought he had gone crazy. He's gotten too involved in this game of being a friend, and it's time for him to keep his distance. Despite her innocent face, he must not forget that she is the descendant of a demon. Ria ate quite a lot in the cafeteria because she knew she couldn't eat like that anywhere else. She saw the others looking at her, but she didn't care, because there was always a lot of food left here. When she noticed June, she waved her hand for him to sit next to her. But, surprisingly, the guy landed in a different place. The girl was noticeably surprised, wondering what was wrong with him. During a fencing lesson, Jun unexpectedly took another person as his partner. During history class, the boy also sat in a different seat, not next to Ria as usual. When they crossed paths in the hallway, June ignored Ria's greeting and walked past. The main character looked at him with a confused expression, not understanding what had suddenly come over him. Ria soon met Janez, who was surprised by the number of maps Ria had made. Jean said contentedly that her instincts could not be fooled, and Ria asked her to be quieter. But Genesis convinced the girl that no one goes into this worthless storage room. Ria doubted they would be able to sell the blank cards, but Janez explained that she would launch them as a sample first. Then, Ria decided to ask why they were doing this at all, since the money they got from the cards was pennies. Janez shared with her that this was all for the sake of becoming the next head of the family. From generation to generation, the place of the head of the Hirschman family was inherited by those whose trading skills were the best. Genese really wanted this place, and she would rather bite her tongue than give it up to her brother. On top of all this, Janez noted that Ria looked a bit gloomy today. Ria said that everything was fine, and eventually, Janez began to get ready for her next lesson. She said goodbye to Ria in a whisper, although Ria didn't understand if there was any point in it now. When Ria was left alone, she thought that she was acting so strange because of Jun. She thought that Jun most likely started avoiding her because of what she said earlier. Ria is upset that she worked so hard to make a new friend, and now he doesn't even communicate with her. But suddenly, she decided that she was simply going crazy, and she needed to put her depressive thoughts aside. Ria lightly slapped herself on the cheeks, trying to wake up so as not to get upset because of some men. Things were much more important, especially since she had the same thing with Anios, so this was no reason to be upset. Eventually, Ria decided that she just needed to sleep to recover. It would be better for her to regain her strength than to waste time on useless thoughts. The main character decided that as soon as she got some sleep, all thoughts about Juna would blow away like the wind. After some time, June comes to the pantry and finds Ria sleeping there. O was surprised that she was sleeping anywhere, but suddenly the guy realized that now she was defenseless. Looking at the girl's innocent sleeping face, June didn't think that a demon could be sealed here. Realizing that this is his only chance, June takes action using his magic. But everything was quite difficult, and the body of the sleeping Ria did not succumb to his magic. The mana he used made June's eye bleed, and he realized that Rhea really wasn't letting him get close to her. As sunset approached, Rhea woke up, not realizing how long she had slept. She felt her jacket, surprised, and thought that Janez had brought it. But you and I know that this is not so. She is brought out of her foggy thoughts by Anios, who suddenly appears in the storage room. Anios smiled at her and asked if she could go somewhere with her, because she needed to talk to her. Rhea agreed without any problem, suspecting nothing, and calmly followed Anios. The lower they went, the more eerie it became, and Rhea decided to ask how much longer it would be. Anios hesitated slightly and answered uncertainly that they were almost there. At that moment, Rhea noticed a bunch of bruises on Anios's leg and dirt on her clothes. She asked Anios not to keep everything to herself if she had any problems. Suddenly, Rhea heard a familiar voice ahead, and her eyes fell on Jun. June coldly replied that Anios had told him that she wanted to meet him here. At that moment, the puzzle began to come together, that something was fishy here, and Anios suddenly shouted for them to run. Suddenly, as if out of nowhere, Kanan appears, saying that it is too late to run. Rhea and June instantly realized that they were trapped and now had nowhere to run. As if by snapping their fingers, they both find themselves in another place, in a dark and cold room. Rhea looks around in panic and notices something shining that looks like a barrier. And in an instant, the girl realized that Kanan had transported the two of them to the Forbidden Zone. The Papillon barrier was installed by Archmage Sios to prevent illegal entry into the restricted area. Rhea was angry. She was furious that she had fallen for such a cheap trick. When she turned around to tell Jun that they needed to get out, she suddenly saw him sitting on the floor. The guy doesn't look well at all, and it's unclear what could have happened. Rhea runs up to him worriedly, noticing that Jun is all sweaty. His body seemed to weaken, and June fell with her head on her shoulder. The mana in this place puts a lot of pressure on the mind, and at this rate, you can get serious psychological damage. Rhea didn't know what to do, but she knew she had no other options. She closes her eyes, releasing her mana, using magic to help June. After some time, the girl opens her eyes and realizes that she succeeded. In fact, the main character entered June's inner world without permission. But it was necessary, so it was okay. And it was also very cold here. If she talks to Jun here, he will immediately come to his senses. All she has to do is find him. The girl stopped, looking ahead in surprise when she saw the Papillon Academy. There were many human corpses inside the academy, and it was not the most pleasant sight. It was the first time Rhea had seen such a dark and abandoned inner world. Inside June's inner world, the main character was finally able to find him. The girl immediately ran up to him and asked June if he was okay. She explains to him that he lost consciousness and then suddenly notices a familiar emblem. June points to one person and tells her that he died. Rhea tried to explain to him that the inner world was made of memories, that it was unreal. But suddenly, the guy unexpectedly grabs Rhea by the shoulders and asks if she killed everyone here. He suddenly grabs the girl by the throat, starting to choke her, angrily repeating the same question. Rhea panicked, trying to get out of his grip, but Jun is very strong. When she looks into his eyes, she notices this strange look, realizing that June is simply not herself. At that moment, she abruptly pushes the guy away from her, giving him a powerful slap in the face. Jun flies back against the wall, hits his back, and falls to the floor, and Rhea realizes that he has woken up. When June slowly opens her eyes, he asks what happened. He said his chin hurt, and Rhea confusedly assumed he'd just fallen. Rhea reminded him that they were stuck in the barrier where Kenan had locked them. The guy asks when it happened, and Rhea replies that she doesn't know exactly when. The barrier is too strong to detect their location, And unless they're lucky, they won't get out at all. But June couldn't stand still, and he said he wouldn't waste time. He grabs the pendant hanging on his chest with his hand and uses his magic. Rhea looked around with interest. So much was she surprised by this sight. But the girl explained that the barrier would not break if you simply hit it with your mana. Frowning, June asks if she's suggesting he just stand there and wait. But waiting wasn't Rhea's style either, so she decides to take action too. Taking out some of her cards, Rhea suggests that Jun try to break the Archmage's barrier. At the same time, Anios was running down the corridor in panic. She needed to ask someone for help. She suddenly bumps into Shion on the corner, and he asks if everything is okay. Anios tries to explain to Shion in a hurry what happened to Rhea and June. With her arms crossed over her chest, June asks Rhea what she is going to do. Of course, Rhea's mana is not enough to destroy the magical barrier, but there is still a way out. She shares that these cards contain the mana of the descendants of Sios. Rhea thought that they could trick the barrier if they found the weakest part and put all their strength into the attack. When the girl throws one card, it actually flies through the barrier. But just when she thought everything had worked out, she saw that the map had only left a small crack. Neither she nor June liked this turn of events, and the latter said that it would not be enough. He grabs his talisman hanging on his chest again and tries to help break the barrier. Unexpectedly, he manages to do this, and the barrier shatters into small pieces. Rhea was genuinely surprised when she saw that they were in the library. She smiled, glad that they had managed to get out, which even seemed impossible. But June noticed that there were no doors or windows, so they were still locked. But let's not get upset, because now they can at least see what's in front of them. As embarrassed as Jun felt right now, he told Rhea that she was doing a good job. After this, the guy invites the main character to look around. Rhea suggested that one of these books might contain a clue to how to find the exit. But even after 3 hours, both of them still hadn't managed to find anything. Rhea had almost resigned herself to the fact that at this rate they would die of hunger here. She asked Jun if he had found anything, but unfortunately, he said no. Saying that there are quite a few books here that have magic cast on them, Rhea suggests examining them. So when June opened one of these books, water suddenly poured out of him. Rhea turned away, barely containing her laughter, as anger boiled inside Jun. The girl told him that he just needed to look harder and picked up another book. But as soon as she opens it, a frog jumps out onto her face. Jun, on the other hand, said it was a great choice because they could roast the frog and eat it. Rhea told him that it was the first time she had seen a magic stone as big as Jun's. The magic stone is the only material that can collect a large amount of mana. Rhea suddenly thought that June might also be from some respectable family. Having remembered something, she decided to ask if it was his jacket that she found herself covered with. Jun was already ready to answer that it was his, but suddenly fell silent. He blushed, covering his flushed face, and Rhea herself blushed, finding him cute. Eventually, June asks her to look for clues if she has nothing else to do. But the girl simply did not understand how she could manage to leaf through so many books. Just when she thought they would be stuck here forever, one book caught her attention. The main character picked up the book, thinking that she had seen it somewhere before. June, noticing this, asked what she had managed to find there. Rhea wasn't entirely sure that this book had anything to do with the barrier. June's patience snapped, and he decided to simply break the barrier. But Rhea stopped him. She told him that they didn't know what was behind the barrier, and they couldn't just burn everything here. Suddenly, at some point, all the books started falling off the shelves. Everything seemed to be collapsing. June didn't understand what had touched Ray, that everything started to fall. But it was an ordinary book. The girl shouted that at this rate they would both bury themselves alive. And June himself understands that he can't stand still, so the time has come to use magic. The guy conjured an umbrella and handed it to Rhea, although she didn't understand why they needed it. After she took the umbrella, Jun suddenly grabbed her hand, firmly and securely. He bounces off the floor, jumping up onto the books, and the girl follows him. Grabbing the chandelier, June pulls Rhea close and asks her to hold on tighter. June assumed that it seemed like a trap to destroy the aliens had been activated. He asked what happened to that book, and Rhea replied that she dropped it. June asked her to stop fidgeting and stand still, but she simply couldn't stay still. All this led to the fact that the chandelier on which they were standing began to come off the ceiling. Jun fell from the chandelier and began to fall down. not having time to do anything. But Rhea manages to grab him by the jacket, thereby flying down with him. Jun hugged the girl tighter, trying to protect her, even though he knew it was too late. And eventually, they both fall into a huge stack of books. Rhea rises first, feeling a furious pain in her head. But as soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Jun lying underneath her, asking if she was hurt. Rhea, of course, panicked at the sight of this, and so replied that everything was fine. June noticed that she was breathing heavily, but the embarrassed Rhea tried to pretend that this was not the case. Anyway, June still noticed that Rhea had injured her knee, and it was now bleeding. But the main character completely refused help, pushing Jun away. Rhea thought Jun was too calm, and wondered where the blushing cutie had gone. She checked to see if he was injured, and Jun said that he barely had time to use magic. Rhea felt something under her hand, and saw the book she had dropped earlier. Jun asked why she did such a stupid thing, and Rhea didn't understand what she was talking about. Rhea could have let him fall calmly, because she wouldn't have been able to hold him up with her weight anyway. The girl was embarrassed when June called it unreasonable and asked what she should have done then. In her opinion, only cowards avoid responsibility by hiding behind rationality. In response to her words, June said that at this rate she would simply die soon. Curious crows don't live long, June said, and Rhea got angry. She didn't understand why he behaved so rudely, thinking that this was his true nature. Then, Rhea decides to ask why Jun has been ignoring her lately. June tries to pretend that she doesn't hear or notice her. But then the girl asked if they could be friends like before, if he really didn't do it on purpose. She waved it off, saying that being alone was no problem at all for her. But after so many days, she had already gotten used to Jun, and she even felt somehow bored without him. After a short pause, Rhea noticed how the guy wanted to touch her, but he didn't have time to do this, because suddenly a wall collapsed somewhere near them. The professor and Anios, whom Rhea did not expect to see at all, entered the library. The woman was angry about what had happened, and she told Rhea and June to follow her to the teacher's room. Later, the teacher tells Rhea that she has been watching her for a long time. She asks with displeasure how Rhea dared to invade Papillon's barrier. The main character could not answer anything except ask for forgiveness. The professor glanced at June and noticed that he didn't seem to be going to apologize. But the guy asked why he should apologize if he was not guilty of anything. Then the woman shouted that breaking the barrier was one of the strictest laws. Rhea wanted to say that some circumstances had arisen, but the teacher interrupted her. She asked Rhea if she still didn't understand how to behave properly. She also explained that if Rhea failed another exam, she would not be able to graduate. Therefore, the professor suggested that the girl try herself in some other field. Just as the main character was about to answer her, she heard someone's voice. Turning around, Rhea saw the director of UBL enter the office and tell the professor that she was overdoing it. The head of UBL is a man from one of the 7 great families, and the director of Papillon. Rhea was a little confused and stunned, because it was the first time she saw him so close. The principal said that Rhea is one of the most talented commoners in their academy. He asked if it was not the teacher's duty to always support the student. The woman tensed up, but still agreed with him. After this, the man asked what the girl's name was. Anios told the director everything from beginning to end, so he understood that it was not Rhea's fault. It seems that Director Ubel did not raise his son well, since he dared to make fun of the barrier. The director promised that he would definitely make Kenan take responsibility. That is why the man asked Professor Dandelmain to forgive these children. Eventually, the professor forgives them and tells them they can go. When Rhea and June approached the door, they ran into Kenan, who immediately ran away like a coward upon seeing them. After they left, the director said that it was the first time he saw this guy. The professor said that he transferred to them from another institution, and he had a recommendation from the Medius family. The professor notes how the director skillfully manages to remain calm when he sees Rhea. The director immediately thought that something was wrong and asked if she really reacted that way because it was Rhea. The woman shared that every time she sees Rhea, she gets goosebumps and starts shaking with fear. Already in the corridor, Rhea breathed a sigh of relief that everything worked out. Suddenly, June doesn't let her go further and blocks the passage with her hand. The guy asks her alarmingly if she really saw something in his head back then. At that moment, the girl immediately remembered that skull-shaped ornament. She said it wasn't on purpose, but June asked her to keep her mouth shut. He leaned closer to her, telling her that she had better remain silent if she wanted to keep her secret. At first, Rhea didn't understand what he was talking about, but then she remembered how Jun saw her with Cheyenne. This made her very angry, and she sharply waved the guy away, asking him to move away. Calling Jun a fool, Rhea explains that she was going to tell no one even without his threats. She guessed that June had kept her secret, her weak spot, in order to use it like this later. This shocked the girl so much that she told June how disgusting he was. After this, the main character turned around and left, leaving June alone with his thoughts. The guy was also very angry about this situation, so much so that he angrily punched the wall. The next moment begins with a woman desperately asking not to kill her. The people gathered around were discussing that someone had used black magic to revive the dead, but her plea was useless because the gun barrel was still pointed at her and a shot rang out. These murdered people seemed ruthless, and everything was as they were said to be. After the death of the Black Witch, Parliament banned black magic and created a squad to hunt black magicians. They were a group of cold-blooded killers who brutally and flawlessly destroyed black magicians. One of June's colleagues tells him that his commander is looking for him. When June arrived as he was told, the commander was indignant that he was taking too long. He asked June if he felt any remorse during the process, and he said no. The commander advised him to cast aside compassion, because black magic was what the demon left behind. If we don't get rid of her completely, a new demon will be born and cover this world with the flames of war. Jun confidently stated that he would destroy these mages with his own hands, and they should not worry. His words truly inspired confidence in his commander. He later claimed to have figured out how to find the demon's sleeping body in Papillon. Jun heard that Seos hid the body in the labyrinth in such a way that no one could find it. But suddenly, the commander says that a descendant of a demon is studying in Papillon's graduating class. This news shocked Jun, and he asked the commander what he meant. He says that the demon's magic is contained in the blood of her descendant. Because of this, they will be drawn to each other, and the child, although on the territory of the academy, unconsciously approaches the body of the demon. The commander promised to forge Jun's data so that he could infiltrate Papillon. Then Jun asks what he should do after he finds the descendant's body. The commander, without any hesitation, answers that, naturally, he must kill. Even if it was just a dead shell, such a sinister creature could not be left in their world. The next moment shows us how the students discussed the upcoming main events of Papillon. Rhea decided to ask Jun if he knew what a full moon night was. The fugitive in the blue robe must take the flag, which is located at the top of Papillon's tower. The task of the rest of the students is to catch the fugitive. It's almost like tag. In 300 years, only one person, a graduate of the first generation of Papillon, has mastered such a complex game. Saying that it would be a lot of fun, Rhea invited Jun to participate as well. But when the main character turned around, Juna was no longer there. Even though this mission was of great importance, it seemed impossible to Jun. He couldn't believe that he had to watch the absolutely brainless elite bragging. However, among them, only Rhea radiates a different light. Walking down the corridor, Rhea bumps into Jun and, irritated, turns back. Jun realizes that he needs to hurry with the mission, or it will reflect badly on him. Rhea walked out into the academy's garden and wondered if Jun was a demon hunter. She didn't understand what he was doing in Papillon, thinking that his prey might be there. But whoever Jun is, it doesn't concern her in any way, and she doesn't want to think about him anymore. Rhea was tired of relying on someone and then being disappointed. Suddenly, at that moment, Anios approached her, asking if she could talk to her. She decided to ask for forgiveness for yesterday, saying that it all happened because of her. Rhea brushed it off by saying that Anios had threatened Kenan, so everything was fine, and she wasn't angry. But Anios explained to her that nothing had been decided yet, because Kenan would definitely not leave it like that. Using his status as the son of the academy's director, Kenan kept the other students under control. Rhea didn't understand why, since she had done nothing to make Kenan hate her. Then the girl concluded that, it turns out, Anios had distanced herself from her because of Kenan. But Anios had no other choice, because Kenan threatened to ruin her family's business. Rhea was on edge about this Kenan, unable to believe that he was so disgusting. Rhea didn't want to spend her money on him, so she always turned a blind eye. She was so hysterical and screaming that she attracted the attention of students passing by. Rhea suggested stripping Kenan naked and hanging him upside down from the roof. Kenan didn't know how to wear clothes anyway, as Rhea thought, and he looked very strange in his outfit. The heroine couldn't even believe that Kenan actually thought this was cool. After this, Rhea suddenly laughed and told Anios that she was really fun to chat with. But Anios thought that if she told Rhea that she was no different from Kenan, she wouldn't believe it. She remembers how, in her first year, when Rhea had just transferred to them, literally everyone was already talking about her. The boys discussed the girl's appearance, thinking that she might be from a noble family. Rhea began to attract attention from the very first day. Even though she was a scholarship student, every time Anios was around her, Rhea exuded superiority. Anios tried to endure Kenan's bullying, but then she saw Rhea with Cheyenne. The thought that Rhea was also special, not like Anios, hurt her pride. Rhea was shining in the center of attention, which made Anios want to stick close to her. Janez unexpectedly finds them and tells Rhea that he has important business news for her. Looking at Anios, Janez asked with displeasure who she was, thinking that she was some kind of spy. She suggested that Rhea move because their business had to be kept secret. But the main character replied that everything was fine and that Anios was her friend. Jeans immediately invited Anios to join their company as a business partner. Rhea distracted her by asking if Janez had found a way to imbue cards with mana. Janez replied that they could use the night of the full moon for this. Janez asked Rhea not to worry about anything and to rely on her, promising that their business would go uphill. Anios and Rhea smiled weakly believing Janez's words. Night falls, and all the guests are welcomed to the Full Moon Night Festival. The girl who introduced herself as Margaret is the president of the Academy Council. Margaret warned the boys that it was forbidden to use magic before the game began. Let's see if this year's fugitive can safely rip the flag off the tower's wing. There will be only one winner. You must run or be captured. The reward for victory will be a giant magic stone, Papillon's treasure. Along the way, players will encounter obstacles that will hinder both the fugitive and the pursuers. After this, Margaret introduces them to the professors who will try to stop them. Rhea understood that the involvement of professors made it difficult to play, and that is why to this day there has only been one winner. She turned her attention to Professor Wishelm, not remembering them having one. Anios reminded her that it was Professor Wishelm from the infirmary. Jeans asks Rhea if she is ready to win and take the grand prize. Rhea understood what Janez meant by her way, but she still asked to trust her. But Rhea tells her that no matter how much she prepares, this idea is unrealistic, and all because this year's runner is none other than Xian. Rhea understood that it was easier to get a star from the sky than to catch Cheyenne. Margaret waves her wand and declares the night of the new moon open. In honor of this, bright fireworks and salutes were launched into the night sky. The pursuers immediately pounced on Cheyenne, but he, of course, escaped. The pursuers scatter in different directions, agreeing that they need to lure Cheyenne to the center. Anios and Rhea were surprised at how hard everyone was trying, but it's true what they say, forbidden fruit is sweet. Anios asked if Xian would be okay, and that it would be hard for him to be alone. Rhea asked why she was so worried about Cheyenne, guessing something. She grabbed her wrist and looked at her palm, confirming her suspicions that Anios was the assistant. 5 students were chosen as assistants, who, hiding their identities, helped the fugitives. Anios was worried that Rhea had exposed her, and that now she would catch her. But Rhea, sighing, shows her palm, indicating that she is also an assistant. Anios stared in surprise at the sign on her palm, not understanding how this was possible. In fact, the role of assistants was pushed onto scholarship holders, who in any case will not be able to win. They will only become a hindrance to Cheyenne, because if they are burned, they will be caught and tied up. Rhea suggested that they hide and stall for time, and at that very moment, someone approached them. It turned out to be Professor Wishelman, who wondered what they were doing in such a place. He found it suspicious that they were whispering together, but Rhea said that was not the case. Placing a fake smile on her face, she says they were just there to kill time. The professor smiled, sensing that they were lying to him, and the girls tensed. He chuckled, coming closer to them and offering to check their palms first. Now they realize that they are screwed, so they have to run to avoid being caught. Anios asked to spare them, because she did not want them to be tied up. But the professor still announces on the gramophone to the rest of the pursuers that there are assistants here. The pursuers come running to the noise and notice Rhea and Anios. running after them. Realizing that this won't work, Anios suggests to Ria that they split up. Eventually, they run off in different directions, telling each other to be careful. One part of the pursuers rushed after Ria, turning the corner where she had run. But when they turned the corner, to their surprise, there was no one there. They definitely saw her run here, but they decided that she went the other way. So, when they leave, Ria emerges from underground, where she had climbed with the help of magic to hide. The girl almost got into trouble, so she decided to look for a place to hide. So she goes inside the empty building, finding herself in a dark room. Having noticed one place, Ria goes there, but finds June already sitting there. Before she could say anything, she heard voices outside, and June suddenly pulled her towards him. The pursuers run into the building and look around, because they definitely heard voices here. June covers Ria's mouth with her hand to keep her from accidentally speaking as they continue their search. The guy leaned towards the main character and quietly asked her not to make unnecessary sounds. Realizing that there is no one here, the pursuers decide to go somewhere else. As soon as they left, Ria indignantly asked June what he was doing. June realized that if Ria was running away, it meant she was the assistant. And then, looking at his palm, Ria saw that June was also an assistant. She stood up, apologizing for disturbing him, and decided to look for another place. But as soon as she heard voices outside, she sat back down in fear. June suggested that she just stay there while Ria trembled in fear of being caught. He tells her that if she goes out now, he will be in danger too. At the same moment, the pursuers were running away in panic from what had just happened. One of the pursuers was grabbed by something strange and screamed for help, trying to get out. The players didn't understand what was happening, but they decided that if they wanted to survive, they had to run. Ria suddenly realized that she had absolutely nothing to breathe here, but we won't tell her that it's all about June. She had no intention of talking to him anymore, but for some reason, she suddenly found herself alone with him again. Realizing that the girl simply couldn't stand it, she thought she should leave. But suddenly, June breaks the silence and asks why she was upset with him that day. Ria couldn't believe he was asking such a thing when he was literally blackmailing her. But the guy calmly answered her that he did not want to argue, but on the contrary, he wanted to understand. But an enraged Ria told him that she no longer wanted to communicate with him and that he should not talk to her. She was irritated that June was talking complete nonsense and doing everything her own way. June suddenly declares that if a person shows his weakness to someone, he will never be able to free himself. Once your hands are tied and deprived of freedom, no matter how hard you try to get out, you won't be able to. And so, when Jun realized that Ria had found out about his weaknesses, all he could think about was how to silence her by any means necessary. And the guy also says that he didn't really mean to make her angry. Guessing that Jun supposedly had no choice, Ria asks what kind of excuse this is. But Jun repeated again that he really had no other way. Ria said with displeasure that instead of threatening her, he could have calmly asked. Jun asks what can be solved with a simple request, and Ria replies that this is what normal people do. Ria doesn't understand how Jun lived in society before this, because he doesn't know how to read emotions at all. Lost in thought, June asks if she would really keep his secret if he asked her to. But because Ria was still angry, she didn't even know what to do. She didn't want to listen to him, because she didn't see any benefit from it. At this moment, June suddenly moves closer to her, and, changing his voice, asks Ria not to reveal his secret. The girl was noticeably embarrassed by the guy's change in mood and behavior. She asked him to stop pretending, and that she wouldn't fall for it anymore. It was easy for Junu to say please, but Ria asked if he should apologize first, and Jun has no problem apologizing to her, although Ria still doesn't hear the sincerity in his words. She said she would forgive him only if June told her who he really was. Ria has already guessed that June is not a transfer student and asks what he is going to do in Papillon. And then she also asks if June is his real name. But Jun doesn't have time to answer, because a magic circle suddenly appears behind him. Xion and Ayla suddenly teleported to this place, which was quite surprising. Ayla approached Ria and told her that she was looking for her, and Ria didn't even know about it. As it turns out, Ayla is also an assistant, and she already knew that Ria was too, because Anios told her. Ayla says that Anios was captured and tied up tightly, so they couldn't save her. Xion asks why the assistant is lounging around doing nothing, and what he should do if she is here having fun. Ria thought he could handle it on his own, but Shion asks in displeasure how he can handle it when three professors are chasing him. Rhea made an excuse that she and Shion were taking the same class in their first year when Ayla said she didn't think they were that close. However, Shion notices that Rhea wasn't alone here and turns her gaze to Jun. Shion hasn't seen Jun before and asks him who he is, guessing that he is not from Papillon. Rhea was very tense about this heavy atmosphere. She couldn't understand what was wrong with them. She reminded Shion that Jun was a transfer student, thinking that they had already met. And the girl also clarifies that Jun is an assistant, but Shion didn't know whether he should let his guard down. Anyway, Shion says that they need to play the role of assistants. Rhea says they have no motivation because they won't get any benefit from it anyway. And suddenly, Shion declares that, in that case, he gave the magic stone to Rhea. The girl couldn't believe it, but Shion says he never lied to her. The main character immediately thought that with the help of the stone, they could create a whole bunch of cards. Ayla also became interested in his words, saying that it was time for them to go. Rhea pointed her finger at Jun and told him to help too. But the guy, looking down as if avoiding her, asks why he should do this. Rhea stated that this would be her condition, and then she would forgive him. He remained silent in response, and then Rhea told him that if he didn't want to help, then he didn't have to. The girl was surprised when he asked what he should do, and said that if he was going to slack off, then he shouldn't even try. But Jun repeated that he was going to help, although Rhea didn't fully believe it. She wanted to object again, but suddenly she was unexpectedly attacked by a monster, the same one that had already attacked the pursuers. Ayla screams in horror and asks in shock what it is. Rhea, captured in the clutches of the monster, asks where this came from in Papillon. Shion wastes no time in trying to help Rhea with her magic. In an instant, the monster's huge so-called arms are torn apart. Rhea falls as the monster releases her, but immediately lands in Shion's arms, asking if she is okay. Shion says that this monster seems to be created from a plant and a reptile. Rhea noticed that Shion's robe was stained with blood and was afraid that such an expensive item had been ruined. At this time, while she was examining someone else's thing, Jun stood to the side and watched them. He himself did not realize how he suddenly came closer and grabbed Rhea by her clothes. When Rhea asked what happened, Jun couldn't answer because he himself didn't realize what he had done. He abruptly lets go of her and steps away, as if shocked by electricity. At that moment, Ayla runs up to Rhea and asks her if everything is okay. While they were discussing what had happened, Jun looked strangely at the seal on his palm. Rhea suggested that they leave here first, because the monster might appear again. But before they had time to leave the room, Professor Maul suddenly appeared with this very monster. The woman couldn't believe that they were the ones who killed her beloved Elizabeth. She was glad that there were finally candidates who would test her chimera. Professor Maul ordered her Elizabeth to join the fight, and the monster began to attack. Rhea screamed how she could do this to her students. It was not normal. She asked Shion to do something since he was a genius, but it seemed like even he was powerless here. But somehow Rhea guessed that these monsters only absorb human mana. Shion saw the movement magic card in her hands and asked what she was going to do. If Shion was caught, then everything would be over, so Rhea ordered him to run and find the flag. Shion didn't have time to say anything against it, before he immediately disappeared with the help of the magic he used. At this time, on the street, the remaining pursuers were discussing that Professor Maul had caught all the assistants. They assumed that they were now most likely put in an underground prison. Rhea, standing at the bars, was almost in tears, and that was precisely why she did not want to take part in this. Ayla asked her not to waste her energy and just wait, since magic couldn't be used in prison anyway. Even if magic is used here, the soul of the caster will be destroyed. Rhea didn't understand how people could be locked in such a place. It was just a game. Jinez, who appeared out of nowhere, suddenly ran up to the bars, angrily calling Rhea a traitor. Jeans is indignant that Rhea could abandon her and go over to Xion's side. This magical stone is absolutely necessary for their business, and Jinez asks where Xion went. Rhea doesn't know what to answer, because she didn't think it would turn out like this. Anios asks Jinez if she really was going to catch Xion alone. Ayla explains that this is impossible, even with the help of professors. Jinez, still irritated by the situation, said that unless she tried, she would never know. Anios also saw Xion use magic recently, so Jinez can't even hope. She tells how Cheyenne helped Rhea and Jun when they were trapped in the barrier. Nobody knew where to look for them, and even the professors were tossed about in doubt. Cheyenne single-handedly combed the entire school with magic and found Rhea and Jun. Even the professors were surprised that he could use magic on such a large scale. And although Anios had seen some famous mages, Cheyenne seemed to be on another level to her. Cheyenne is superior to everyone, and none of the mages from the other great families had such a volume of mana. Ayla added that sometimes it even seems to her that Cheyenne is abnormal. Rhea couldn't believe that Cheyenne was like that to such an extent, even though she herself had often heard about his superiority. That's why Ayla volunteered to be an assistant, since the likelihood of Cheyenne winning was still higher. But Ayla actually hates losing. Janez asked with displeasure what difference it made now. Janez is not going to give up, and she already has a plan in place for that eventuality. She shows them the transformation card she bought on the black market last week. Jeans explains that with this card, you can completely copy another person's appearance. Jeans bought this card with 5 years of her savings, and if she fails, she will go bankrupt. She says that she will transform into Rhea, and then Xion will let his guard down, and Janez will stab him in the back. Taking out a bat, Janez says that the moment Xion turns away, the game will end. Rhea panicked because if Janez hit him with that sledgehammer, he would die. Suddenly, this very sledgehammer flew up before Jean's and Rhea's eyes. And then she also dropped down sharply and hit Jeans on the head. Professor Dandelmain says they caused a stir even in prison. She released them, and Rhea asked in surprise why she was suddenly helping them. And the woman said that there was also an assistant among the professors, and it was her. She asked them to come out quickly and get down to business. Either way, they must adhere to the festival rules. As they walked out, Ayla stopped them and said she had a good idea. And Rhea wanted to ask June to help them by remembering something. But when the girl turned around, he, of course, was no longer there. June, that liar, ran away, and Rhea was only convinced that he couldn't be trusted. At this time, Kenan, sitting on the roof, commanded the other pursuers, telling them not to move so as not to fall into a trap. Kenan is waiting for Xion to appear here, because in order to take the flag, he must pass through here. All this fuss with the Chimera was Kenan's chance, because then he could push everything onto her. Kenan was simply amused by the fact that Xion was called the outstanding genius of Papillon. He wanted to catch Xion and prove that he was a much more valuable magician. While he was deep in thought, someone suddenly came up to him from behind and pushed him against the wall. The guy didn't have time to understand what happened, trying to see who was there. Seeing that it was a transfer student, he was outraged that he dared to attack him. But smiling, Kenan asked if June had simply put on a beautiful image and forgotten his place. His words only made Jun more angry, so he abruptly pushed him against the wall with his foot. Kenan couldn't utter a word because of the crush, but Jun asked him to continue speaking. All this time, Jun allowed Kenan to do whatever he wanted, only because he himself did not want to attract attention to himself. However, he noticed that Kenan always crosses the line in his actions one way or another. When Kenan tries to push him away, he realizes that for some reason he can't use magic. He looked down and saw that underneath them was the magic circle from Papillon's underground prison. It's a long-forgotten magic that no one teaches anymore, but some transfer student was able to use it. Kenan starts yelling and asking to remove his foot under the pretext that he is the son of the director of UBL. He couldn't allow himself to be treated like that, and he said that Jun would definitely not get away with it. But suddenly, Jun asked if Kenan really had nothing else to brag about except being the director's son. Jun asked him to report to the director how he was beaten by a simple commoner and was unable to fight back. The guy was even interested in how quickly rumors would spread that Kenan was a real loser. Kenan pushed him away, telling him to shut up and that he shouldn't have gotten on his nerves. Since Jun is a transfer student, he should have stayed put and kept a low profile, according to Kenan. He told Jun that he should know his place, because it was he who, having grabbed Rhea, brazenly walked around the academy. Jun didn't like that expression, as if Rhea was some kind of accessory. This made him even more angry, and he used his magic to step on Kenan's hand. Kenan cries out as pain shoots through his broken fingers. Once Kenan realized that Jun was crazy, the latter asked him not to show up in his sight again. Jun threatened him that next time he would break his head instead of his hand if Kenan continued to act like that. Soon the pursuers rushed to the place where Xion was seen in order to catch him. Someone said they had just spoken to him in the library, and someone else had seen him in the east part of the building. Margaret, hiding in a dark place, watched her pursuers from the side. As they ran away, she turned and whispered that the place was empty. Cheyenne comes out from around the corner, thanking Margaret for saving him. Saying that she is the only one on his side now, Cheyenne asks how he can repay her. Margaret, embarrassed, said that of course she could help a little as a presenter. And then Cheyenne asks if she can fulfill one request of his. Cheyenne suddenly asks if Margaret could lend him her staff. She doesn't understand why he needs a staff that's just filled with fireworks magic. Margaret felt sorry to just give away the property to the academy. She asked if Cheyenne would go to that new cafe she had told him about earlier. Cheyenne agreed without any problem, looking forward to their meeting alone. They agreed to meet on Thursday, and after that, Cheyenne left. But as soon as he disappeared behind the wall, it turned out that it was not Cheyenne at all, but Rhea reincarnated as him. The magic of the card simply amazed her, and even the voice was exactly the same. Ayla, Aeneos, and the professor also agreed to transform into Cheyenne and distract the others. She needed to hurry when suddenly Cheyenne appeared behind her, asking what that was. The girl shuddered, and Cheyenne said that he had been watching her here for a long time. But Rhea wasn't sure if it was the real Cheyenne, so she decided to check it out. Cheyenne is unhappy that Rhea, having transformed into him, arranged some meetings without his consent. Rhea felt awkward, but her plan seemed to work. She really needs this staff, and for the sake of winning, Cheyenne could go on dates. Cheyenne asks in a rough and low voice if she has decided to sell it, but Rhea replies that this is not the case. Unfortunately, the tower where the flag was engulfed by that same monster. You can't use magic against this monster. You can't even climb the wall. After thinking for a bit, Cheyenne finally asks Ray what their plan is. While the girl was sharing the plan with him, the pursuers found Cheyenne and chased after him. Cheyenne tells Rhea that they should run, but she suggests that he use the staff. She said that if Cheyenne, the strongest among them all, uses this staff, his strength will increase tenfold. Cheyenne pulled Rhea closer to him, seeming to agree with her suggestion. Before using the staff, the main character asked Cheyenne to close his eyes. The glow was too bright and glaring, and no one could see what was happening. At some point, Cheyenne shouted at Rhea that she could open her eyes. Opening her eyes abruptly made her feel a little dizzy and her ears hurt. Cheyenne guessed that this monster's weak point was light, because the tentacles could not open their eyes. So, grabbing Rhea's hand, Cheyenne began to run while they still had time. They ran along the castle wall, and the flag they needed to grab was already close. But Rhea suddenly falls when the monster returns and grabs her leg. Rhea was afraid that the chimera had already opened its eyes, and did not understand how this happened. Professor Maul realized that these scoundrels had outwitted her, but she would not let them go so easily. As it turned out, the professor forcibly opened the damaged eye so that it would not close again. Being surrounded by the monster, the main character now didn't know what to do. Then, Cheyenne asks if Rhea really needs the magic stone and what she plans to do with it. Rhea couldn't tell Cheyenne the truth, that she needed the stone for her business with jeans. But Cheyenne, looking at her, said that she didn't have to answer if she didn't want to. And after these words, the guy unexpectedly hugged the girl. Before she had time to say anything, Cheyenne decided to, so to speak, borrow her for a while. Professor Maul couldn't believe her eyes that Cheyenne was using magic. The other pursuers and assistants were also delighted by Cheyenne's strong magic. Not a single professor believed what they saw, because his magic seemed impossibly strong. Thus, reuniting with Ray's power, Cheyenne manages to tear the monster apart, literally blowing it up. Rhea looked around and stared at the monster, not understanding how this could be. It just didn't fit in her head that Cheyenne was able to tear the monster apart with magic. It turns out that Cheyenne ignored his opponent's magic and suppressed it. Professor Maul began to cry, holding in her hands the only remains of her Elizabeth. At this very moment, Margaret finds herself in the center of events, announcing that the winner of the night of the full moon has been determined. Of course, without a doubt, Cheyenne was the winner. The students rejoiced, because this was the first winner in 300 years. The students were delighted. Cheyenne seemed incredible in their eyes. Rhea was surprised by the noise that arose, although there really was something to admire here. Finally, a new great archmage appeared in the state, but it felt like a real new legend was being born. The main character realized that there was no place for her in this long story. That is why she needs to leave this place as quickly as possible, and preferably do it before Xion becomes a legend. Rhea suddenly saw someone's silhouette in the distance, not understanding who it was. She knows that entering that tower is forbidden, but she definitely saw someone. But still, Rhea allowed the thought that it might just have seemed that way to her. The professor, who already knows that Rhea is a descendant of demons, was glad that she is healthy and has powers. The next moment begins with Rhea, holding a lantern in her hands, walking along a dark corridor. At some point she stopped, suddenly wondering what she was doing there at all. The girl was also surprised when blood suddenly appeared under her feet. Looking further into the darkness of the corridor, she sees a man lying on the floor. Rhea was frightened and shuddered when suddenly someone appeared behind her. The stranger grabbed the yard from behind and immediately covered her mouth with his hand. When the girl raised her head to see who it was, she saw Xion. The woman, lying and bleeding on the floor, asked him how he could betray her. Rhea was amazed when she heard the woman call him Sios. If this woman had known that everything would turn out like this, she would never have fallen in love with someone like Sios. At this point, Rhea suddenly opens her eyes, breathing heavily. Only now did she slowly begin to realize that it had all been just a dream. She thought she had studied history too hard if she was already dreaming about Sios. This strange dream and the overwhelming emotions even gave her a headache. On this day, the students discussed who received an invitation to the ball, hosted by the Song family. They say that all the important political figures will gather there, and that only members of the family of great magicians have been invited there. There are rumors that even the royal family will appear at this ball. Jeans asked worriedly if Rhea was okay, because she had been coughing since the morning. Rhea tried to blame it all on the fact that she had been very busy lately. But Jeans, showing Rhea her share of their business, said that everything would pass as soon as she looked at it. Rhea is surprised that Jeans was actually able to sell all the cards. So, patting the girl on the back, Janez asked her to work harder at production. Rhea accidentally dropped her piece of paper as June walked past. The girl is irritated by his appearance, because June left not the best memories after their last meeting. Either way, the boy silently leaned over and picked up the piece of paper, handing it to Rhea. She snatched the paper from his hands so abruptly that it was crumpled, and reluctantly thanked him. Janez called after him that she was glad he had helped them, and Rhea felt a burning shame. Jeans is sure that June is interested in Ray, because he has been following her around since his transfer. Rhea chuckled, replying that she too had been somewhat mistaken about that. She explained to Jeans that June had not gotten close to her because he liked her. To play the role of a student, Jun needed someone to bond with, and Rhea was a perfect candidate. Rhea remembered how she clung to Jun, complaining to him that she was lonely. From that moment on, the girl decided not to expect anything more from this guy. After class, Rhea visited Professor Wilshman, who, after touching her forehead, determined that she had a common cold. When he asked if she had any other symptoms, Rhea said she had a headache and a cough. Then the professor decides to prescribe the girl some medicine and asks her to wait a little. While he was mixing the solutions, one of them accidentally fell on his hand. Rhea, looking at him, thought only about how clumsy he was. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed that the professor had some red marks on his arms that looked like scars. But, having decided to remain silent, Rhea wanted to ask something else. She asked how he started working at Papillon, since she had never seen him there. A slight smile touched the professor's lips, and he asked what she was talking about. He reminded her that he had been working here since his first year, thinking that Rhea's memory was playing up due to her fever. After this, the professor hands her the finished medicine. He asks Rhea to drink it, guaranteeing that it will make her feel better. Rhea suddenly felt an ominous energy coming from the medicine. Professor Wilshman asks what happened when Rhea suddenly doubled over with a sharp headache. He gives her the medicine again and asks her to drink it, promising that it will definitely make her feel better. As soon as the girl drinks the medicine in one gulp, she loses consciousness, and the professor catches her. Although this was not in his plans, it would do, and he asked Rhea not to keep him waiting too long. When Rhea woke up, she suddenly realized that she was strangely suspended in the air. Looking around, the main character felt a huge amount of her mana. She guesses that she has entered someone's consciousness, someone's inner world. A woman appeared before her eyes, who immediately recognized Rhea. Smiling, she talks about how much time has passed since Rhea descended into this abyss. At this moment, Rhea remembers that she had already seen this woman in her dream. Remembering her words in the dream, Rhea asks who she is and what she wants from her. The woman thought for a moment and asked her to start with urgent matters. After asking the protagonist to look ahead, the woman explains that she is sealed here. She grins and says that at this rate, she'll have to reabsorb Rhea again. The very next moment shows us Rhea, still unconscious, lying in bed. June carefully and quietly enters the room where the girl was lying. Touching her forehead, the guy determines that the temperature has already dropped. Eventually, June places a chair next to the bed and sits down, wanting to watch Rhea. He thought that when Rhea was sleeping, she didn't look so angry. So, while there was still a chance, Jun dared to gently stroke her hair. He immediately pulled his hand away as soon as Rhea muttered something unintelligible. Someone appears behind him and suddenly grabs him by the throat. It was his demon leader who asked him what he was doing here. He reminds Jun that he came here to fulfill his duty and that Rhea is his target. The demon leader asked Jun not to forget that he was always watching him. After these words, he disappears, and Juna breaks out in a cold sweat. He stands up, repeating to himself that he needs to do his duty. And at that very moment, he stopped when he heard movement behind him. Awakened, Rhea asks in a low voice what he is doing here. She called him a naughty child who sneaks in here like a thief. And suddenly, the tower they were in unexpectedly explodes. People on the street panicked when they saw this terrible picture. Nobody understood what had happened and why there was suddenly a powerful explosion. Jun was thrown against the wall by a strong wave, and he began to guess that it was not Rhea at all. Rhea called him a weakling, asking if that woman had really sent him here. Left without an answer, the main character asks him if he is ready to die. Confused and frightened students panic and ask someone to call the professor. Jun was badly injured. The wound was too deep, and he needed to stop the bleeding. The guy sincerely did not understand what kind of monster had taken up residence in Rhea's body. The witch sitting in the body had not seen the blue sky for a very long time. While the witch was locked in the ruins, this kingdom flourished, and all this happened when they had completely forgotten what they had done to her. They composed songs about their heroes and lived in happiness and peace. Now Jun became sure that this was not the real Rhea, but someone who controlled her body. Realizing that she can't wait, June decides to use magic to defeat the witch. But the witch did not allow him to touch her pendant. She broke it into pieces. A huge rock flies at June, instantly knocking him off his feet. The witch could clearly see that June was in pain, but she told him that he should have sat still. She hates people like June the most, people who don't realize what they're doing. And the witch couldn't allow such people to hang around our main heroine, Rhea. She suddenly grabbed Jun by the neck and lifted his body into the air. Jun began to choke. He tried to call Rhea by name, but it was difficult. At that moment, something strange happened. Something that made Rhea let go of June. The witch in the girl's body began to cough, as if losing all her strength. She is indignant that Rhea's body is resisting her actions. The witch hoarsely said that Rhea didn't understand men at all. She didn't have time to do anything else, finding herself in a magic circle. It turned out to be Cheyenne, who came to the rescue and drove the witch into a trap. The witch asks Cheyenne to let her go, covering him with bad words. But the next second, under the influence of magic, she switches off, and Ray's body falls into Cheyenne's arms. Before Cheyenne can leave, June stops him and asks where he is going to take Rhea. Cheyenne, turning to Jun, said that it seemed that his Rhea had caused him a lot of trouble. He decided to apologize in Rhea's place and ask June to forget everything he saw. But June could not imagine how he was supposed to forget everything that had happened. He is only tormented by the question of who it was in Rhea's body, who almost killed him. Cheyenne warned him not to try to find out about it, because next time it might end up worse. Then June asks if Rhea is not a descendant of a black witch. The guy was curious about what was really hidden inside Rhea's body. But Cheyenne, on the contrary, asks him why he needs to know this. He tells Jun that if his mistress said he was a descendant, then he is, and let him continue to carry out his orders. Jun doesn't calm down and asks Cheyenne how much he knows, and he said that it's clearly more than he knows. So, calling June an outsider, Cheyenne asked him not to interfere. After that, Cheyenne went home, still holding Rhea in his arms. The servants greet them with stunned expressions on their faces. They panic and ask what happened, but Cheyenne replies that it was nothing special. With a smile on her face, Cheyenne reports that Rhea was simply very tired and passed out. He said everything was fine and was going to take Rhea to her room. At this moment, the lady, Mother Shiona, appears on the stairs, having come out here in response to the noise. The lady was also puzzled by what had happened, so she asked what had happened. Cheyenne thought that his mother had gone away on parliamentary business and did not know that she was at home. But since the lady was not feeling well, she decided to return early. She asked what happened to Rhea, and Cheyenne lied that she was sleeping because she was very tired lately. Mother guesses that the preparations for the ball must have been tiring. She directed her hand at Rhea's seal and restored it with magic. The lady didn't understand how this could happen when Cheyenne was next to Rhea. Cheyenne smiled and apologized for this, explaining that there was outside interference. He convinced his mother that not a single hair had fallen from Rhea's head. The mistress ordered the servants to let Rhea rest for some time, and she also warned Cheyenne to watch her every move closely. Cheyenne heard his mother tell him to do this if he didn't want to lose Rhea again. Some time passes, the maid comes to visit her mistress, and she is already feeling better. Since she wanted to rest peacefully, she ordered that no one should come into her chambers. But as soon as the maid left, the mistress heard a knock at the door and allowed entry. She saw who it was and asked rudely how he dared to come here. It turned out to be June, whom the woman asked if he really wanted to die. First of all, the guy apologized for disturbing him. It's a secret that the lady is the leader of the demon hunters. And Jun, knowing this, dared to come here. But June, clenching his hand into a fist, said that he had an urgent report about that girl. The lady asked him not to tell because she already knew and had dealt with the problem. To bewitch the minds of a huge number of people was a trifle for them. Jun had nothing to worry about, so the lady asked him to carry out his duties calmly. But Jun still decided to ask who that girl really was. He says that he saw her image and thought that the witch had entered Rhea's body. But the guy was at a loss because he knew that the witch had died 300 years ago. Therefore, he wants the lady to tell him the truth, because it will help his work. But suddenly, the woman unexpectedly gets out of bed and plunges a sword into June's body. It was a real shame because she thought June was questioning her orders. The lady decided that Jun had become confused while getting carried away with the game at the academy. But she asked him not to forget what his mother had done in Papillon. Being part of one of the great families, she was going to use black magic. She sacrificed the lives of innocent people, seduced by the promises of the Black Witch. And the person who pulled Jun out of this nightmare was the lady. She gave Jun a magic stone and taught and trained him so that he could emulate other magicians. So, the lady asks if Jun has already forgotten how much she has done for him. He wanted to say that he could continue to carry out his duties effectively, and at this point, she asked him to shut up. In fact, the lady took him away only because he was full of hatred towards black magicians. And so, holding a sword to his throat, she asks him to tell her the reason for his existence. Jun, looking up at her, declares with his last strength that he must kill all the black magicians. The lady returned the stone to Jun, asking him to fight on and avenge his mother. There is little time left before Jun finds the body of the Black Witch and carries out her revenge. Some time passes, and the main character, Rhea, suddenly opens her eyes. When the girl looked back, she saw a black witch sitting next to her. Frightened, Rhea asked the witch to let her go, but she said that it was time for her to change. The witch was upset that she was able to go out for the first time in a long time, but did not have time to do anything. There was a lot to deal with, and she asked Rhea to handle it herself. The witch says that we need to find her body and open it to get rid of the seal. Rhea explained to her that she was an ordinary person and could hardly use magic. But the witch tells her that Rhea can do it, and she is capable of more than she thinks. Because of the seal, when Rhea wakes up, her memories will be blurred. But the witch asked her to only remember her diary. The conversation was about Siosa's diary, which contains information on how to find the witch's body. 7 years ago, there was a rather strong and ambitious sorceress in Papillon. But even despite her talent, she was not allowed to become a professor, and the reason was that she was a commoner. Some time passed, and the fourth son of the Medius family became interested in her. They quickly fell in love with each other and promised to spend the rest of their lives together. They were unable to get married officially due to interference from the husband's family. But even so, they built a small house in the suburbs, and soon they had a child. Her husband asked her not to worry, because when the child grew up, his family would have no choice but to accept him. However, the long-awaited child, on whom all hopes were placed, was born without magic. As hope faded, their relationship began to crumble. The husband is indignant that a child in a family of wizards cannot have magic. He did not believe that this was his child. Every time they argued, little June heard all their conversations and quarrels. The woman suddenly said that if she had known that everything would turn out this way, she would never have married him. Then the husband asked if she was with him only because of his relationship, and decided that one should not fall in love with commoners. The man just sighed heavily and finally told his wife that she was on her own now. Despite his wife's screams and her request to stay, he still left them alone with the child. All this time, the woman was sure that her husband would return in a few days, and he could not just leave the child. But as she passed other students, she heard them discussing her husband. The woman couldn't believe her ears when she heard from them that he was going to get married next month. The students discussed the fact that his daughter-in-law was already pregnant, and that he had been in a hurry. Since then, the woman simply could not come to terms with the departure of her husband and the loss of a father for the child. Then she began to put all the blame on Jun, saying that it was all his fault. She screamed that if June had been born as expected, none of this would have happened. But as soon as the woman released all her anger, she immediately began to apologize to her son. June's mother promised him that he would definitely become a wizard. She believed that if you try, everything will definitely work out and everything will be fine. Having decided to take the child to Papillon, she secretly conducted all sorts of experiments there. But no matter what she did, she couldn't create magic that would last. All this time, June was sitting in Papillon's yard on a swing and waiting for her. An unfamiliar girl approached him and decided to ask him what he did every day in Papillon. The boy replied that he was conducting an experiment, and if everything worked out, he would become a wizard. But the girl asked him what he meant if magic couldn't be created just like that. She noticed that June had a fever and looked just awful. So the girl decided to quickly heal him while no one was looking. She told him to come here again if his temperature rose. For a child, June felt a little comfort in his heart at that moment. The teachers watching them from afar were discussing this girl. The man reflects that this girl does not seem special and asks if what he was told is true. The woman confidently reports that this child has been going to Papillon for several decades. The professor first felt discomfort when she saw the same girl last year in a new class. At first, she thought that this child was a second-year student, so she decided to ignore him. Deciding to do a little investigating, she discovered that no one at the academy knew about Ray. She even tried to address Ria directly. But after talking to her, her thoughts seemed to become clouded. As a result, the woman concluded that Ria was a girl who did not exist. The professor thought that there was magic that made everyone get close to Ria, and then forget about her. They decided that someone had kidnapped the girl, and they were desperately trying to hide her in Papillon. Only one person in history is capable of such powerful magic, and that is the Archmage Shiroso. The woman could not believe that Shiroso had been traveling around Papillon for 300 years. But even so, Shiroso's magic should have weakened after 300 years, although even the most powerful wizards fear him. The professor didn't understand why Shiroso was doing this and who this girl was. But the man suggested not to rush to conclusions and ask Sylvia for advice. Sylvia is well-versed in mental magic, and she is also a descendant of Shiroso. Meanwhile, June's mother was still trying to create magic for him, to make at least something work. And then a witch appeared and told the woman that she had everything to make her wish come true. In her hands was a bottle of the sorcerer's blood, with which June's mother would be able to make him a wizard. And even her husband can return to her. She can marry him, become a member of a magical family. She persuaded the woman to take blood by promising that she could get everything back.